The chamber fell silent as the hologram showed another world burning, and watched his feathers dim to a pale gray. 8 colonies lost in 3 months. The swarm consumed everything in its path, and the Galactic Assembly had no answer. "We must consider the option," In said, his voice barely above a whisper. The others stirred uncomfortably in their seats. They knew what option he meant, the one they had avoided for 50 years. They hissed, his scales turning dark red. "You cannot be serious. Their planet is classified as Class 12. Nothing that hostile should produce intelligent life." "Yet it did," In replied, "and we are dying." The vote took 3 hours. In the end, survival won over fear. The message was sent into the darkness toward the system the humans called Earth. Ambassador received the transmission at the frontier outpost. She had been humanity's diplomatic representative for 5 years, stationed at the edge of known space. In all that time, the Assembly had sent her polite messages and nothing more. They feared her people. Now they needed them. She read the message twice, then reached for the communication panel. "This is Ambassador to Earth Command. We have a situation." Captain Menu stood on the bridge of the humanity's first deep space military vessel. He was a tall man with graying hair and calm eyes that had seen too many battles. When the orders came through, he read them without expression. "Sir," his first officer asked, "what are our orders?" "We're going to war," Menu said simply. "Prepare the fleet." There was not alone. 11 other ships joined the formation, each carrying hundreds of human soldiers, pilots, and support crew. 4,000 humans in total, heading toward a threat that had destroyed 8 alien worlds. The crew moved with practiced efficiency, checking weapons and armor, reviewing tactical data, preparing for combat. Minu watched his people work and felt something close to pride. They were ready. They had always been ready. Humanity had spent 10,000 years learning how to fight, how to survive, how to win against impossible odds. Now the galaxy needed those skills. When the human fleet arrived at the Assembly's core station, the aliens were not prepared for what they saw. The ships were built for war, with thick armor and massive weapons arrays. They ran hot, their engines pushing boundaries that would terrify most species, and the humans inside moved through environments that should have killed them. Met with the Assembly Council in person. She stood before them in a simple uniform, her face calm and professional. The aliens stared at her like she was a dangerous animal that might attack at any moment. "You asked for help," said. "We're here to provide it." "Your species," In began carefully, "has concepts we find disturbing. War, weapons designed specifically to kill, tactics that accept casualties as inevitable." "Yes," agreed, "we do." "How can you be so calm about death?" Met his eyes. "Because we've lived with it our entire existence. Our world tried to kill us every day. Predators, diseases, natural disasters, and eventually each other. We learned to fight back. We learned to win. And now you'll fight for us." "That's what you asked for, isn't it?" Smiled, but it wasn't a comforting expression. "You asked the stars for aid. The stars sent." Captain Menu entered the council chamber, and the aliens drew back instinctively. He was large even for a human, with broad shoulders and hands that looked like they could crush metal. He carried himself with the confidence of someone who had never lost a fight. "Captain Menu, commanding the Human Expeditionary Force," he introduced himself. "I understand you have a target for us." The hologram appeared again, showing the swarm's latest attack. Thousands of creatures swarming across a colony world, consuming everything organic. The Assembly's defense forces were retreating in chaos. "Our colony," explained. 3 million civilians, our ships cannot hold them." Minu studied the display for exactly 10 seconds. "We can be there in 18 hours. Tell your people to hold on." "Your fleet is so small," In said quietly. 12 ships against a swarm that destroyed our armada." "Sir," Minu replied, "you haven't seen what 12 human ships can do." The human fleet departed within the hour. As they jumped to faster-than-light speed, stood in the observation deck with several alien observers. They watched the stars stretch and blur, traveling at speeds that would kill most species from the acceleration alone. "Don't your people feel sick from this?" one alien asked, his voice trembling. "We're used to it," said. "Humans adapt, that's what we do best." "What if you fail?" In asked quietly. "What if even cannot stop the swarm?" Turned to face him, and her eyes held something the peaceful alien had never seen before. It was determination, pure and absolute, backed by 10,000 years of refusing to surrender. "Then we'll die fighting," she said. "But we'll take as many of them with us as possible, and the next wave of humans will learn from our mistakes and do better. That's how we've survived every threat our world threw at us. That's how we'll survive this." The alien felt a chill run through his body. He had asked for help from. Now he wondered if he had any idea what that truly meant. The human fleet raced through the darkness toward a battle that would show the galaxy what humanity really was. Not monsters, not savages, but survivors who had learned that sometimes the only way to preserve life was to master death itself. They dropped out of faster-than-light speed above Aura, and Captain Minu immediately saw the situation was worse than reported. 3 hive ships surrounded the planet, each one larger than an assembly cruiser. Thousands of attack craft swarmed like insects around the dying colony defenses. "All ships combat formation," Minu ordered calmly. "Weapons free, show them what humans do." Sergeant checked his armor seals one final time. Around him, 40 Marines did the same in the drop ship's cargo bay. They had trained for this moment, practiced it 1,000 times. Now it was real. "Listen up," called out. "The aliens down there have never seen humans fight. Let's make an impression. Remember your training, watch your corners, and bring everyone home." "Sir, yes, sir," the Marines responded in unison. The human ships moved in ways that assembly military doctrine. They didn't maintain safe distances or coordinate through careful communication protocols. Instead, they dove straight into the swarm, their weapons firing in controlled bursts that tore through ships with brutal efficiency. Fighter pilot pulled her craft through a tight spiral that would have knocked most aliens unconscious. Her targeting computer locked onto 6 enemy fighters in 3 seconds. She fired, and all 6 vanished in brief flashes of light. "Falcon to command," she reported using her. "Enemy fighters are slow, really slow. This is almost too easy." "Stay focused, Falcon," her squadron leader replied. "Easy is when you make mistakes." On the assembly command ship, In watched the battle with growing disbelief. The human vessels moved like predators, aggressive and relentless. They didn't retreat when damaged. They didn't pause to assess. They just kept attacking, adapting to every countermove within seconds. "How are they doing this?" whispered. "Their ships should be destroyed by now." "Their doctrine is different," explained, standing beside them. "We don't build ships to avoid damage. We build them to survive it and keep fighting." A hive ship turned its main weapons toward the energy blast would have vaporized an assembly cruiser. Instead, it struck the human ship's armor and scattered across reinforced plating. The shuddered but held, and Minu's response was immediate. "All forward batteries target that hive ship. Fire everything." The weapons unleashed a storm of kinetic rounds and missiles. The aliens watching had never seen weapons like these. No elegant energy beams, just metal and explosives moving at incredible speeds, tearing through the ship's hull with savage efficiency. Controlled explosions, in breath. They use controlled explosions as weapons. "We call them bullets and missiles," said. "They work very well." Dropship punched through the hive ship's hull, and the Marines poured out into the dark corridors. The inside were not prepared for what happened next. Humans in armor moved through the ship like a natural disaster, their weapons firing with deadly precision. "Contact left," a Marine shouted. spun and fired 3 rounds into a warrior. The creature fell and the Marines advanced without pause. "They're inside a hive ship," said in horror. "No one survives inside a hive ship." "Humans do," replied. Dr. Sora ran through the colony's medical center, her hands moving quickly to treat wounded aliens. She had trained as both a doctor and a combat medic, knowing that war required both skills. Around her, assembly doctors worked in a panic, overwhelmed by the casualties. "You're doing it wrong," Sora called out to one doctor trying to stop an alien's bleeding. "Here, let me show you." She demonstrated a tourniquet technique, applying pressure that the gentle assembly doctor had been too afraid to use. The bleeding stopped. "You're hurting him," the alien doctor protested. "I'm saving him," Sora corrected. "Pain now, alive later, that's the deal." She moved to the next patient, working with an efficiency that shocked the alien medical staff. Humans had learned battlefield medicine through countless wars. They knew how to save lives under the worst conditions, how to make brutal choices when time was the enemy. Squadron engaged a cluster of ships trying to retreat. She armed her missiles and prepared to fire, but her targeting computer flagged a risk. The explosion might damage an Alliance transport nearby. "This is Falcon, requesting clearance for strike. Civilian transport in blast radius." "Negative, Falcon, break off." "Copy that." Pulled away without hesitation, then circled for a different angle. 30 seconds later, she destroyed the same ships without risking the transport. The mission came first, but humans understood the difference between acceptable risk and recklessness. Inside the hive ship's team reached the central chamber. The Queen sat on a throne of organic material, surrounded by warrior drones. She was massive, easily 3 times the size of a human. "Set charges," ordered. His team moved quickly, placing explosives on key support structures. They had 6 minutes to work, but they finished in 4. "Charges set. All teams fall back to extraction point." The Marines retreated through the ship with the same discipline they had shown advancing. When the explosives detonated, the entire hive ship shuddered. The central chamber collapsed, and the Queen's psychic connection to her swarm fractured. Without coordination, the attack faltered. The human fleet pressed the advantage, destroying ship after ship. Within 2 hours, the battle was over. The colony was saved. Captain Minu stood on this bridge, surveying the damage reports. His ship had taken severe hits, but every system still functioned. Around the colony, the human fleet regrouped, battered but victorious. "Casualties?" he asked. 43 wounded, 7 killed, his first officer reported. "All bodies recovered." Minu nodded slowly. Every loss hurt, but he had expected worse. "Send our dead home with full honors. Get medical teams to the colony for support operations." On the planet's surface, Marines gathered in a secure area. Someone produced a portable speaker, and music began playing. The Marines laughed and celebrated, their discipline giving way to relief now that the battle was over. In watched the celebration through a video feed, his feathers pale with confusion. "They nearly died. How can they celebrate?" "Because they didn't die," explained. "They won, and that's worth celebrating." "They're terrifying," said quietly. "They're survivors," corrected. "And now they're your allies. You asked for, you got them." Lieutenant stood before 300 alien soldiers on the assembly training world. They looked at him with a mixture of fear and curiosity. These were volunteers, the bravest among their people, willing to learn from the "War is not about honor or glory," began. "It's about survival. You fight to protect what you love. Everything else is just details." The aliens shifted uncomfortably. Their cultures had no concept of organized violence. For 50,000 years, they had lived in peace. Now a human half their age was teaching them how to kill. "Today we start with the basics, running." The aliens looked confused. "Running? We have vehicles for transportation." Running builds endurance. It teaches your body to keep moving when your mind wants to quit. 5 kilometers, let's go. By the second kilometer, half the alien soldiers had collapsed. Their species were not built for sustained physical stress. Slowed his pace but didn't stop. On your feet. In battle, they won't wait for you to rest. Watched the training from an observation platform. Beside him stood with her arms crossed. Is this really necessary? Asked. They're suffering. They're learning, replied. Suffering is part of it. Humans aren't strong because life was easy. We're strong because it wasn't. Engineer worked in the assembly weapons laboratory, and the alien scientists watched her with growing alarm. She had taken apart 3 different energy weapons and was now assembling something new using what she called basic chemistry. This is a primitive combustion device, one scientist protested. We abandoned such technology ago. Because you forgot that simple can be effective, replied. She finished her assembly and held up a crude but functional weapon. This uses chemical reactions to propel a metal projectile. No power cells, no energy signatures, just physics. She fired the weapon at a test target. The projectile punched clean through the advanced armor plating that would have stopped an energy blast. The alien scientists stared in stunned silence. Sometimes old solutions work better than new ones, explained. That's called innovation through necessity. Humans do it all the time. Sergeant trained assembly soldiers in hand-to-hand combat. Most had never touched another being with intent to harm. The concept disturbed them deeply. What if I don't want to hurt anyone? One alien asked. Then you die and the person you were supposed to protect dies, said bluntly. In combat, hesitation kills. You act or you fail. There's no third option. He demonstrated a basic defensive technique, showing how to redirect an attacker's force. You don't need to be strong. You need to be smart. Use their momentum against them. The alien tried the move and succeeded. For the first time, he looked at his own hands as if they were weapons. This feels wrong. It should, agreed. The day it feels right is the day you stop being a soldier and become something else. Good soldiers never forget what they're doing. Joined for dinner one evening in the human section of the base. The food was strange, spiced with flavors the assembly considered too intense, but ate anyway, trying to understand these people who terrified him. Why do you separate your roles? Asked. You are Lieutenant the soldier but also just the person. How do you live with both? Poured tea into 2 cups. Because they're different things. When I'm in uniform, I follow orders and make hard choices. When I take off the uniform, I read poetry and call my mother. The uniform doesn't define who I am. It defines what I do. But you've killed people. Yes, didn't look away. And I'll carry that weight until I die. Every soldier does. But I killed to protect others, not for pleasure. That distinction matters. Took a sip of tea. It was bitter and harsh like everything human. Are you a monster? Sometimes I wonder, admitted. But then I remember the people I saved. The colony still standing because we fought. Maybe we're monsters, or maybe we're just people who learn to do monstrous things when necessary. Captain Menu addressed the Assembly Council about human military doctrine. He pulled up tactical displays showing human ship designs. Notice the redundancy. We have backup systems for our backup systems. One hit doesn't stop us. This seems wasteful, observed. Efficient design would minimize redundancy. Efficient design assumes everything goes according to plan, Menu replied. Combat never goes according to plan. We design for chaos, not perfection. He showed footage from the Ara battle. Watch how our ships respond to damage. They don't retreat for repairs. They reroute power, seal breaches, and keep fighting. That's not technology. That's mindset. Dr. Sora taught a class on combat medicine at the Assembly's largest hospital. The alien doctors were skilled healers, but had no experience with trauma care. War wounds were completely foreign to them. Your priority is keeping people alive until they reach proper care, Sora explained. You can't save everyone. You have to triage. Red tags for critical, yellow for serious, green for minor, black for those beyond help. Black, an alien doctor asked, horrified. You abandon them. You focus resources where they'll do the most good, Sora said gently. It's brutal, it's unfair, but it saves more lives overall. That's the mathematics of war. Engineer presented her hybrid weapons to the assembly military leaders. She had combined human kinetic technology with alien energy systems, creating something new and devastating. Your energy weapons are precise but power-hungry, explained. Our kinetic weapons are crude but reliable. Together, they cover each other's weaknesses. She fired a test weapon. It used energy to accelerate a physical projectile to incredible speeds, combining the best of both approaches. The target didn't just break, it vaporized. This is remarkable, one military leader admitted, but also terrifying. Welcome to human innovation, said with a slight smile. We make scary things because our world was scary first. Stood on a hill overlooking the training grounds one evening, joined him, and they watched the alien soldiers practice what they had learned. They moved differently now, with more confidence and purpose. Are we becoming like you? Asked quietly. No, replied. You're becoming what you need to be. Humans aren't special. We just had 10,000 years to learn these lessons. You're learning them in months. That makes you faster learners than us. But at what cost? Was quiet for a moment. The cost of survival, same as always. The question isn't whether that cost is high. It's whether what you're protecting is worth paying it. The warning came at dawn. 3 assembly worlds under simultaneous attack by the swarm. Captain Minu stared at the tactical display and saw the impossible choice immediately. His fleet couldn't defend all 3 locations. They had to choose. Analysis, Minu ordered calmly, though his jaw was tight. Lieutenant pulled up data on all 3 worlds. Kali's Prime has 2 million civilians but strong fortifications. 4 has 4 million but weak defenses. Station has 800,000 and orbital platforms. If we split our forces, we lose all 3, Minu said. If we concentrate, we might save 2. Ambassador stood in the command center, watching Minu make the calculation. She knew what was coming and felt sick even as she understood the necessity. 4 has the most people, In said urgently over the communication channel. You must go there first. 4 also has the weakest defenses, Minu replied. By the time we arrive, it will already be lost. Kali's Prime and Station can hold long enough for us to make a difference. You're condemning 4 million people to death. I'm saving 3 million, Minu said, his voice hard as steel. That's the choice I have. I don't like it, but I'm still making it. Fleet, set course for Kali's Prime. Maximum speed. The human ships jumped to faster-than-light speed, leaving 4 to its fate. Saw the hatred in his eyes through the video feed. She couldn't blame him. 4 million dead because one human captain did the mathematics and chose survival over sentiment. He's right, said quietly. You know he's right. Knowing doesn't make it easier, In replied, his voice breaking. Sergeant and his Marines landed on Kali's Prime with orders to hold the central city. The swarm had already breached the outer defenses, and thousands of creatures poured toward civilian shelters. 40 Marines stood between the swarm and 400,000 helpless people. Set up defensive positions, ordered. Standard containment pattern, nothing gets past us. The Marines worked quickly, turning a city plaza into a kill zone. They had ammunition for maybe 2 hours of sustained combat. The battle would last much longer than that. Sir, we should fall back to secondary positions, a corporal suggested. Negative, we hold here. The civilians need time to evacuate. We won't survive this. I know, said simply, but they will, that's what matters. Fighter pilot led her squadron toward station. The fleet there was larger than anything they had faced before. Her targeting computer couldn't count them all. She armed every weapon her fighter carried and prepared for what might be her last flight. Falcon to all ships, we're going in hard. Target the Hive command vessel. If we take it out, the rest will scatter. That's a suicide run, her wingman replied. Then we make it count, said. Follow me. Her squadron dove toward the massive Hive ship, and fighters swarmed to intercept. Hands moved across her controls with practiced precision, dodging fire that would have destroyed slower pilots. But there were too many. A blast clipped her wing and her fighter spun. She compensated, pushed her engines beyond safety limits and kept flying. 2 more hits. Her cockpit filled with smoke and warning alarms. She was 20 seconds from the Hive ship. 15. 10. I'm hit, called out, taking critical damage. Eject Falcon, eject. Not yet. 5 seconds. 3. She released every missile she had in one massive volley and pulled up with all her remaining power. The missiles struck true, and the Hive ship's command center exploded. Fighter broke apart from the stress. The last thing she saw was the rescue beacon activating before everything went dark. Dr. Sora operated in a field hospital that was really just a reinforced bunker. The wounded kept coming, both human and alien. She worked without stopping, her hands moving from patient to patient with mechanical efficiency. No time to think, just act. A Marine was carried in with massive injuries. Sora assessed him in 3 seconds. He wouldn't survive more than 10 minutes. Behind him, an alien soldier had survivable wounds but needed immediate attention. The mathematics of triage. I'm sorry, Sora whispered to the dying Marine. She moved to save the one she could save. The Marine grabbed her arm weakly. It's okay, Doc, that's the job. He died 2 minutes later while Sora worked on someone else. She kept working. She would grieve later. Right now, she had 20 more patients waiting. Position held for 72 hours. No human could fight for that long without rest, but they did anyway. They pushed their bodies past every reasonable limit because the alternative was 400,000 deaths. When Captain Minu's reinforcements finally arrived, 16 of the original 40 Marines were still standing. The rest were dead or too wounded to fight. The plaza was covered in bodies. Not one creature had gotten past them. Sergeant, you can stand down, Minu said over the communication channel. Didn't lower his weapon. Are the civilians evacuated, sir? Yes, all of them. Only then did collapse. His armor's medical systems showed he had been running on stimulants and pure willpower for the last 8 hours. He should have been dead. Instead, he had saved half a city. Woke up in a medical bay 3 days later. Her body was wrapped in regeneration bandages, and every movement sent pain shooting through her. Dr. Sora stood beside her bed. Your fighter didn't make it, Sora said gently. But you did. We pulled you from the wreckage. The station asked. Saved, your strike broke their command structure. We won. How many did we lose? Sora's face darkened. 40% of our forces. 4 was completely destroyed before they could evacuate. 4 million dead. Closed her eyes. Victory felt hollow. The memorial service was held on the. Captain Minu stood before the names of the dead, human and alien together. He had made the choice to abandon 4, and he would carry that weight forever. They asked us to save everyone, Minu said quietly. We couldn't, but we saved everyone we could reach. That has to be enough. Ambassador watched the service through a video feed. And stood beside her, his feathers still dark with grief. He had called humans monsters after 4 fell. Now he wasn't sure what they were. You grieve for the dead, In observed, even while planning the next battle. Yes, replied. That's what humans do. We honor the fallen, then we keep fighting to make sure they didn't die for nothing. How do you live with such loss? We don't live with it, said. We carry it, Every death matters. Every sacrifice is remembered. That's why we fight so hard to prevent more. Engineer stood in the weapons lab staring at her hybrid creations. They had worked perfectly, deadly efficient. She had saved lives by creating better ways to kill. The contradiction made her feel sick. Lieutenant found her there, second-guessing yourself. 4 million people died. My weapons didn't save them. Your weapons saved 3 million others, replied. In war, you count what you saved, not just what you lost. Otherwise, the weight will destroy you. Does it get easier? No, admitted. But you learn to carry it. That's the price of being a soldier. We carry the weight so others don't have to. The intelligence came from an unlikely source. A damaged scout ship, captured by human forces, contained navigation data. Lieutenant studied it for 3 days straight before bringing his findings to Captain Minu. We found their home world, said simply. The swarm's origin point. Every hive ship reports back there. Minu looked at the star chart in silence. One world. Strike it and the entire threat could end, or it could fail spectacularly and doom them all. The Assembly won't approve an offensive strike, Minu said. It violates their core principles. Then we ask permission first, replied. But if they say no? We do it anyway, Minu decided. Sometimes you protect people by making choices they can't make themselves. Ambassador stood before the Galactic Assembly Council 3 days later. The chamber was packed with representatives from all 47 species. They had all seen the human proposal. The vote would be close. You want us to approve a preemptive strike, In said. His feathers were a neutral gray, impossible to read. An invasion of their home world. Yes, replied. The swarm will keep attacking until we stop them at the source. We can end this war. By becoming invaders ourselves, another asked. How does that make us better than them? Because we'll stop after we win, said. The swarm consumes everything. We'll contain the threat and offer surrender. That's the difference. You asked for help, continued, her voice carrying across the chamber. This is what do. We find the threat, we eliminate it, and we protect those who can't protect themselves. You can vote no and we'll respect that, but the humans will still go because that's who we are. The vote took 6 hours. It passed by the narrowest margin in Assembly history. The humans had permission. They also had volunteers. 6 Assembly species sent ships to join the human fleet, each crewed by soldiers trained in human tactics. Captain Minu stood on the bridge of the and looked at the combined fleet. 50 ships. 20 were human, 30 were alien. It was the largest military force the Assembly had fielded in 50,000 years. All ships, this is Captain Minu. Today we end this war, fight smart, fight together, and come home alive. Sergeant led the ground assault planning. His Marines would hit the surface while the fleet engaged the orbital defenses. It would be brutal. Many wouldn't survive, but they had trained for exactly this mission. Remember what we taught you, told the alien soldier standing with his Marines. Fear is normal. Acting despite fear is courage. You've got this. A young alien soldier raised his hand. What if I freeze? Then your squad has your back until you unfreeze, replied. That's why we fight as teams. No one stands alone. The fleet dropped out of faster-than-light speed at the home world. The defenses were massive. Hundreds of hive ships in orbit, thousands of fighters, weapon platforms covering every approach. They had found the nest, and the nest was heavily defended. All ships weapons free, Minu ordered. Show them what you learned. The battle began with a coordinated strike that would have been impossible months ago. Human ships provided heavy firepower while alien vessels used their superior shields to protect the formation. Engineer, hybrid weapons tore through defenses with devastating efficiency. Fighter pilot, recovered from her injuries, led a mixed squadron of human and alien pilots. Her body still ached, her scars still fresh, but her hands were steady on the controls. All fighters target the orbital platforms, clear a path for the ground assault. The fighters moved like a swarm themselves, coordinated and relentless. The aliens flew with human aggression. The humans flew with alien precision. Together, they were unstoppable. On the ground, forces landed under heavy fire. The soldiers fought with desperate ferocity, defending their home. But the human-trained forces advanced with discipline and tactics they had never encountered. Dr. Sara established a field hospital behind the front lines. Casualties poured in immediately, and she coordinated both human and alien medical teams with practiced efficiency. They had learned to work together, combining different medical techniques to save more lives. The battle raged for 18 hours. Slowly, inevitably, the combined forces pushed toward the central hive complex. Lieutenant coordinated the assault, his tactical planning combining human strategy with alien technology. All units converge on the primary structure. We breach in 5 minutes. Captain Menu's ship took heavy damage protecting the assault force. This armor held barely as ships tried to destroy it. Menu never stopped giving orders, never showed fear, even as his ship burned around him. Reroute power from non-essential systems. Keep our weapons firing. We're not done yet. His team breached the central hive. The queen waited there surrounded by her elite guard. She was ancient and massive, the mother of billions. Raised his weapon. "Surrender," he said through his translator. "Withdraw your forces, stop the war." The queen's response came through captured telepathic equipment. "We consume. That is our nature." "Then we end you," replied. "That's ours." The explosion that followed destroyed the central hive and killed the queen. Across the planet and throughout space, the swarm suddenly lost coordination. Without their leader, they were just animals, confused and directionless. "All forces cease fire," Menu ordered. "Offer surrender terms. The war is over." Ambassador stood before the surviving leaders 3 days later. The peace terms were simple. The swarm would be contained to their home system. They would be monitored. Any expansion would be met with immediate military response. "You could destroy us," one leader said. "Why show mercy?" "Because we're not monsters," replied. "We're protectors. There's a difference." 5 years later, Captain Menu sat in a quiet office on Earth, writing his memoir. The title was already chosen. They asked for soldiers, we gave them guardians. Outside his window, a transport ship lifted off, heading toward the stars where human military advisors now trained defense forces on 12 assembly worlds. Sergeant walked through a training facility on an alien planet. His students were a mix of 6 different species, all learning human tactics. He was older now, with more gray in his hair, but his eyes still held that warrior's focus. "Again," he called out to a struggling alien recruit, "you can do better." "I'm trying," the recruit protested. "Then try harder. The people depending on you deserve your best effort." On Ara, where the war began, a memorial stood in the central plaza. Names were carved in stone, human and alien side by side. The dead who gave everything to protect those they had never met. Visitors came daily to remember. Ambassador stood beside it at the memorial. 5 years had changed them both. His feathers were bright green now, the color of hope in his species. "We feared you," it admitted. "We thought would bring only death." "We brought what you asked for," replied. "Protection, survival, hope. The fact that we know how to fight doesn't mean that's all we are." "What are you then?" Smiled, looking at the names on the memorial. "We're people who refuse to give up, who learned that sometimes the only way to preserve life is to be willing to defend it with everything you have. You asked the stars for aid. The stars sent us, and will keep answering as long as anyone needs help." A new distress signal came through on the communication network that evening. Another threat, another species in trouble, another call for help. Looked at the message and then at Menu, who had come out of retirement for one more meeting. Shall we answer? Asked. Minu smiled, the expression of a warrior who had never learned how to stop protecting others. That's what we do.